Hello, everybody. We're on here. All right, so I'm here today to talk about the modernization of marketing research, and I'm going to share with you General Mills' pursuit towards richer insights by way of technology. Mobile is a huge part of that, of course, but we are beginning to look beyond mobile, and I'll tease a little bit of that. I'm going to talk to you about why we made a big commitment in the space of mobile and modernization, how our progress has been, kind of what's worked and what hasn't, and then again, kind of take a look to the future before we close. If you have comments or feedback, feel free to hit me up on my Twitter handle there at RTBacker. And with that, we'll jump in. So this is a 5-year history lesson that I'm going to try to tell in about 20 minutes here. The journey for us at General Mills started in about 2011, where we saw the opportunity at the intersection of mobile technology and marketing research. And we committed a resource to it, a guy by the name of Andy Divbig. In fact, he started his journey in exploring and getting smart about mobile marketing research at MRMW Amsterdam a few years ago. He spent about a year getting smart, connecting with suppliers, finding those key players. In fact, he vetted well over 100 to arrive at the 5 or 6 that we felt really confident about partnering with to take General Mills to on that mobile journey. And by 2013, we felt that we had accomplished a ton. In fact, I should share that in 2011, after Andy had completed his Get Smart phase, as he likes to call it, he was so optimistic about how mobile could revolutionize the industry that he said at General Mills, we need to be doing 80% of our research via mobile by 2014. 2013, we were getting close. We weren't quite there, but saw the light at the end of the tunnel and basically formed a plan to begin to disband our mobile team. And so Andy is no longer leading mobile. In fact, we don't have a mobile team at General Mills anymore. I've stepped in 2014 here today and have taken a new role of emerging technologies, and that's trying to identify the biggest thing after mobile, and I'll get to that shortly. So we made the investment in mobile, and we went all in. We were really committed to pushing towards that 80%, and we did it for 3 reasons. The first of which is because we had to. As everybody here is well aware, the adoption of mobile around the globe is through the roof, and as a result, it's become the default access point for all things internet. And for better or worse, in fact, right around 2012, we started to look into how many people were accessing our internet content via mobile, and we learned that 30% of our respondents were accessing our surveys via mobile. And these are surveys that were not yet mobile friendly, surveys that were 45 questions long, took 30 minutes to complete, were incredibly cumbersome on the phone, and we lost a lot of respondents as a result. And those 2 facts are particularly true for our growth targets, millennials and multicultural around the globe. Also mobile growth is strongest in those segments. So we really had to go there. But we also did it because we wanted to. We are a consumer-first organization in all that we do. We tend to think about that in the innovation we bring to the market, but we also want to be consumer-first when it comes to research. And that means that if a consumer must play the role of respondent, we believe that they would rather do it on their mobile phone at their convenience as opposed to in an awkward focus group or with the moderator coming into their home, a moderator stranger in their home. But we're also incredibly excited about all of the multimedia benefits of doing mobile research. So you could bring back rich content like photos and images and UPCs and location, and we thought that could really transform the insights that we acquire through research via mobile. And then above all, and most importantly, mobile gives us the ability to finally be in context and in the moment and to generate real and not recalled data. For example, if we have a new on-the-go breakfast replacement snack product, we want to learn about that while consumers are eating it, while they're on the go, and we want them to share their feedback in the moment as they're having those thoughts and experiences. We don't want them to recall it weeks or months later. We want to get it then, and mobile is the only way to do that. Mobile is the only way to get at moments like this. You're not going to hear about this woman's late-night refrigerator run in a focus group or a traditional interview. And the last reason we went all in is because it just felt right. If you look at the 2 images on the left of your screen, they're pretty representative, and forgive the language, but I think it's sort of funny. Those 2 images are pretty representative of how most of our firms do research today, surveys and focus groups. But if you just look at the pictures, they look like they're straight out of a 1980s textbook. It just doesn't feel like it's 2014 if you're doing research like that. Look at the picture on the right. That's a smart, sleek device that feels modern. That's how we want to do research. We want to do research on a platform like that. And I'm going to give you a few examples of when we started to dabble with mobile, some of the tremendous wins we had. So the first picture here that you can see on the mobile phone is we were trying to better understand the competitive set of our Nature Valley products, our Nature Valley granola bar or grain products. And Typically, we would do that by asking a survey, and we'd have a closed-ended question where we'd list all these categories that we thought were likely the competitive set. But instead, we pushed out a survey and we asked respondents to take a picture of their snack drawer, take a picture of their pantries, and we got this really rich information back like this that we would not have achieved through traditional methods. Another example is our shopper insights teams routinely work with retailers, and we routinely try to tell retailers that they have executional problems and we struggle to influence. But in using mobile technology, we've been able to walk into our retail partners and say, hey, I know you don't think you have an out-of-stock problem, but just last weekend we had 100 shoppers go out and share their frustrations with shopping your store, and we can produce image after image of shelves that look like this where they truly have an out-of-stock issue, and that speaks volumes. And then lastly, if you're trying to understand pain points and joys in consumers' lives, it's really hard to capture them authentically if you're trying to capture them at an interview that you schedule for 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon where they come into your corporate headquarters. It's just so much more effective and rich to say, hey, record a video of yourself in this moment. And the example I'm going to play for you here, a little clip, is a project that our Betty Crocker team had done trying to better understand the difficulties and the joys of party planning. And this woman here is about to talk about the unrealistic expectations her daughter has for her birthday party. And I don't know that I'd capture this unless I did it through these self videos. Oops. You need to mouse over that and hit the play button. Thanks.
As far as party planning goes, I actually think the princess gig is one of the easier parties that you can plan just because there's so much stuff out there. And I think you can probably see behind me, we are surrounded by princess stuff here. It's everywhere. So we're not lacking in ideas. And we're not lacking in availability either. The most challenging thing for me, and I'll see if I can get this so you guys can see it. Do you see that castle right there? That one? That's what baby girl wants her cake to look like. Apparently there's a cake pan where you can buy that'll look just like that. And while that's very cute, this particular mom is very not talented in that regard, so that's going to be my biggest problem.
So it's stuff like that we feel we can't get really any other way, and so that's why we were all in. That's why we were pursuing this technology mission here. So how did it go? I would say, in the words of our VP, she uses this phrase a lot, this acronym a lot, good enough, move on, right, GIMO. It's not perfect. There have been some hiccups along the way, but we feel really good about our progress and feel we're very close to accomplishing our goals. So I'll explain a little bit of how we got there and provide some tips in case you are earlier on your journey than we may be. So the first thing we did to be really successful in getting towards this 80% is we heavied up. I mentioned we started with a team of one, the gentleman by the name of Andy. By 2013, we had 6 full-time employees in place on our mobile research team. And they literally held hands with our brand teams and our business teams as they had business questions that could be best answered via mobile. They'd find the supplier, they'd help design the research, they'd help with coach and reporting. And as a result, person by person and project by project, we taught our organization how to fish. And understand, and mobile research just kind of became embedded in our culture. We also, when we would have wins, when we'd try interesting new methods, we'd literally put consumers on a stage in front of the community and acknowledge the work that they had done and share these best practices. And so it created an environment where people said, hey, if he can do it, I can too. Or wow, those insights are great, I want to try to copy that. We built a lot of momentum that way. The process also went incredibly well when we were able to redefine best practices, where we could basically say, hey, if you do what you've been doing before, but you do it on a mobile phone, you're going to unlock all these new insights and opportunities. And I'll give you 3 examples. The ethnography one, I just shared with you the baking video, which I think is a good depiction of that. But not only do you get the rich moment in the moment and really authentic, you also get incredible breadth. You're not limited by the number of markets you can afford to send your moderator to conduct all of those one-on-one interviews. Mobile can be all places at all times. You can do quantitative, qualitative research, if you will. Geo-intercepts, I'd say that's been the biggest game changer in terms of what mobile has done for us, the ability to actually recruit respondents sort of based on their location. So you can geofence every Tesco in your market, and whenever your mobile panelists enter that store, you can push them a message saying, I see you've entered Tesco. Would you be interested in completing a brief survey in exchange for a few discount on your shopping today? That's been a game changer because we can really get in the moment and we can get that natural interaction while shopping as opposed to when you're encouraging consumers to go out and document their experience. And then lastly, instant ANUs, and this is really just a catch-all for any kind of shorter survey work. We love the fact that mobile panelists, because they have their mobile phone within arm's reach at all times, are always on. And so we have literally fielded and reported surveys in under 2 hours before. In fact, I did it just 2 days ago with our team in Switzerland before I had come out here to Berlin. And so you can get really, really fast insights via mobile. So I'd be remiss to say that this was a perfect journey. I mentioned, good enough, move on. And I want to hit on a few of the places where we stumbled a little bit. The first is in mindset. We run into troubles with this lift and shift mindset, and also how people think about ROR, or research on research. What I mean by that is we essentially have a mandate to do more research via mobile. And so I will occasionally have the reluctant researcher walk up to me and say, I hear I have to do more mobile. Can you help me put this, my old 45-question survey onto your little 2x3 screen? And it doesn't work that way. You need to rethink the way that you're doing things. You can't literally just lift your old research design and put it on mobile. You need to be smart about how you do that. And then on the ROR front, I'll also have people come up to me and they'll do their first project or a handful of projects via mobile, and then they'll come back and say, hey man, I tried it, but the results I'm getting via mobile are not the same as the results I had gotten through my traditional old school methods in the past. So it must not work, I'm moving on. And that one kills me, because when I see different results, I get really excited, because I think we're finally getting closer to the truth. We're finally in context. We're finally in the moment. We're finally getting real data and not the recalled data. So you have to rethink the ROR. You're not trying to get numbers to match. It's not the goal of ROR in mobile, because it's just an apples and oranges comparison. Multimedia paralysis, for those of you that have probably already done this, you remember the first time you pushed out a survey where you asked for video or photo feedback. Because if you do a large sample, you have a couple hundred respondents, it takes hours to literally flip through all of those different images or watch all of those videos to glean the insights. And there's no great machine learning-like way to bubble up themes. You really have to spend a lot of human time. There are some shortcuts that I can talk about during a break if you'd like, but that's a challenge. And then lastly, with the rise in mobile, there's been a rise in DIY solutions, and that's great, because you can do research at the click of a button. But the problem with that is we've got junior researchers, or worse, marketers, doing their own research without putting the thought into the experimental design. And as a result, I think mobile has a quick and dirty reputation when it should have a quick and amazing reputation if you take the time to be wise about your experiments. So nonetheless, we've had a few hiccups, as I mentioned, along the way, but we're moving on. We formed this new team, this emerging technologies team, and disbanded the mobile team. And so make no mistake, we're not done with mobile. We still do tons of research via mobile. But we no longer feel the need to have those 6 full-time employees holding hands with our researchers. We've effectively taught the organization how to do research. It's kind of embedded in who we are. We don't have an internet team. We don't have a pen and paper team. We don't need a mobile team. It's a platform. Everybody gets it now. And so we're moving on to the next big thing. 2 big reasons, or 3 big reasons actually, why we feel comfortable in doing this. First of all, we feel like we've hit the tipping point. I mentioned that 80% goal at the beginning of this presentation, and if I'm being honest, we probably haven't actually hit the 80%. I would say that 80% of our researchers have definitely experimented with mobile a handful of times. I'd say that 80% of our methods are device agnostic now, or at least tracking to get there in the next year. And so we think momentum can carry us over the hump. And so we feel really good about that. We've also identified so many suppliers that we think are wonderful partners that we can encourage our brand teams to work directly with the suppliers, effectively taking us out of the middle. The other reason we feel fine going forward and disbanding that team is we feel like we've identified all of the key barriers. And not only have we identified them, but we have communicated them on stages like this and one-to-one with our supplier partners to what they are and where we need the most help. One example is panel. So while mobile is global, a global panel is not where it needs to be. We don't have the breadth or depth we need just yet. And so we often struggle in certain markets with certain targets at finding those small incidence groups. Mobile panel needs to grow, and we've communicated that, and a lot of suppliers are tracking. Next generation toolkits is, what I mean by that is, I think our supplier partners have done a fantastic job of taking traditional methods and transitioning them to being mobile friendly and enhancing as a result. But I think mobile has so many great bells and whistles associated with it, and so many wonderful technologies, that it's time to start thinking about new capabilities and new toolkits that we haven't had in the past because of the technology that we have, and I'd love to see more of that. And then on the full service front, while I said that our brand teams are now working directly with our supplier partners, and they are full service to a degree, I feel like technology people that are entering the market research game have fascinating technology, but their marketing research skills are raw. I think the marketing research firms are wonderful at the rigor of marketing research, but sometimes technology isn't as sleek as it should be. And then every once in a while, you guys all have, I'm sure, some of your favorite qualitative partners in terms of ethnography, and they're really great at storytelling, and that final deliverable is often infographic and really compelling, but they lack the rigor on experimental design, and their technology isn't quite there. And the point is, I think there are 3 key areas that I'd love to see blended together and to provide true full service, where you can share a business question and get a really compelling infographic story in the end. So, and one of the biggest reasons we're moving on is because we're really salivating about what's next. Does anybody know what this is on the screen here? Anyone? Yeah, both, a cake and a 3D printer. So it's it's a wedding cake that's about to be 3D printed. My team is literally now, instead of hand-holding with mobile research, they're literally out scouting technologies like 3D printing and like smart appliances and smart connected devices, trying to find marketing research opportunities within. And so we're really excited about where the marketing research world will be going in the next several years. And so I'll just give you a teaser of some of the areas that we're currently focusing on, or the areas we plan to get into very soon. So we tend to focus on new applications of existing technology, typically mobile phones. We focus on new data streams, and I'll get to that in a second, and then new technologies, new gadgets, new shiny objects. In the new application space, one of the areas that we're really passionate about is getting into gamification of marketing research. And when I say gamification, I'm not talking about a 10-point, in transitioning a 10-point scale to 10 different smiley faces. I'm talking about true gamification where consumers are playing a game and we're tapping into that system one thinking to get insights that we haven't been able to get before. So we're playing there. We're also really curious about the possibilities with iBeacon technology. I mentioned the geofence research that you can do, the geolocation research that you can do, but iBeacons allow you to identify your respondent's location to within about 4 inches, and that precision will be really game-changing. New data streams. One of our favorite leads here is we have a supplier back in the States. They're not representative globally just yet, but they've created a receipt scanning loyalty program where consumers are incented to scan their receipts, and they, as a result, have produced a database very similar to what Nielsen or IRI has, but you can get that feedback on your products literally in real time, and you don't need to wait the weeks or months that you do with traditional syndicated suppliers. And that's been a game changer for us in terms of how we approach, how we measure new product innovation or look into getting feedback on new product innovation. And then the whole wearable and quantified self movement is really exciting. So thinking about taking Fitbit data and MyFitnessPal-like data and changing the way that we look at some of the diary work that we've done. And then lastly, new technology, a couple examples here. The image on the top right is of a narrative clip. It's a little 1-inch by 1-inch square that you wear on your chest, and it takes a photo every 30 seconds. It's got its glitches, and it's just in beta mode right now, but we see that as a potential aid to different ethnography tools that we have, and that we'll be able to see the world through the eyes of our consumers like we haven't before. And then the smart appliances I mentioned just a moment ago. This is a smart refrigerator. It's essentially a refrigerator with an iPad on the front of it, and then some technology on the inside that can keep track of inventory. And it can keep track, it can push menu suggestions based on what you have available. It can push coupons based on what you're out of. And of course, it sits on a ton of really rich information on consumption that we could capitalize on. And so here are a handful of ideas that maybe felt science fiction and space age not too long ago, but all these technologies currently exist today, and we're trying to find ways to continue to modernize our marketing research capabilities as a result. With that, that's really all I had to share with you today. I guess I just close by saying that I think it's time that we all begin to challenge the way that we traditionally have been doing research. I think it's time to ditch the long-form survey. I think it's time to start moving away from focus groups and really embracing these emerging technologies that can make for richer insights, faster insights, and hopefully, the more of us that get involved in this game, cheaper and more affordable insights. I'm all in the modernization of marketing research. General Mills is all in. I would hope that you all would be as well. I encourage you to come on in. The water's warm, I assure you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Have we got any questions from the audience? Could you just say who you are and where you're from? Great.
Good morning.
Morning.
And thank you for the lovely presentation. It was really it was a lot of information for us. And I would like to ask you, what exactly do you mean opportunities out of 3D printing? Could you a bit
Sure.
elaborate?
Yeah, so in all these crazy, you have to squint a little bit to find the opportunity, and the opportunity isn't necessarily available today, but we can work on it. One thing in 3D printing, Hershey has invested in a 3D printing company, and in California, in some markets, they've created these 3D printing vending machines where consumers can walk up to the machine and they can literally design the chocolate that they want. They can incorporate different elements, and it's a really fun consumer-friendly tool that maybe a marketing gimmick, but at the same time, imagine all the rich information they're collecting on consumer preferences, and I got to imagine they're using that information to inform their pipeline, innovation pipeline, and so that's one small example within 3D printing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? Okay, I've just got a brief question.
Sure.
So, with your new emerging technologies lab, and there's so many new technologies emerging, I'm curious as to the approach that you may take when you're exploring something new. Do you start by looking at the problem you've got and thinking how you're going to solve it, and then you go looking for a technology that might solve it? Or do you tend to go look at a technology that's available and think, how could I apply that, how could I apply that? So just what's your approach when you're looking at these?
Yeah, I'd say our approach tends to be, let's get out there, and kind of like I mentioned with Andy in terms of how he kicked off our mobile work years ago, we spent some time getting smart. And so we've been out in the industry, in the tech industry, not the research industry, trying to get smart on what's available, coming up with that 3D printing story, for example, and saying, hey, this is something that we could do, and we try to bring it back to the business that way. I think it's important to know the landscape. I'll admit that that's been problematic. I think that when it works is when a team raises their hand and says, hey, we have these questions that we just plain can't answer. Is there some technology out there that can help with that? When we find solutions that way, then they take off internally, and I think mobile is a great example of that, where it allows you to get insights we couldn't get before. When I came back with the 3D printing idea for the team, their initial response is, we already have some ways to inform our innovation pipeline. That seems a little crazy. And so we're doing both. It tends to work better when you start with the business question, of course. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you.